getting better by the day. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're watching from. I'm super excited to be here again at the Economic Summit. Fantastic time. It's getting better, I must tell you. It's getting better. I sat down today, I was watching a lot of videos, and also I've been trying to see the things that we've been doing in the last, say, 2 months now. This is about our fifth or sixth episode, and I tell you, I'm really proud at what we're doing. The truth is this: if we continue with this thing another 2, 3, 4, 5 years, it will be super excellent. It will have its footprint all over the nations of the world. Everything, like I said last week, that started or that is great today, permit me, everything that is great today started very small. Everything. um the first person, or the first personality that was as a creator is actually God. The opening of the good book, the Bible, said that in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. So God was introduced to us first of all as a creator. God was introduced to us first of all as a creator. So, and then when God created everything we see today, He didn't create them so big. He created everything so small. Today, the world is about over 8 billion people. It started with just two guys or two individuals, Adam and Eve, as we call them. Um, we started a series, very fantastic series last week. How they started the world's the world's biggest company, how they started. It's really exciting. My study, my search, my research. I'm learning, very fast. 2023 for me, to be honest with you, if I continue with this pace or and increase it, I know that the result will be very phenomenal. You see, laws make life predictable. Laws make life predictable. You may not be at the place where you want to go at the spot, but the progress you are making, you are also excited at the progress. You are also excited at what you are getting. So, um, welcome again. We're going to be considering something very awesome. Another company. We're going to be considering another company tonight, and I must tell you, I'm supercharged. I am getting better and getting better by the day. The things I see about in my study, the things I see about this company showed me that anybody who is patient enough will can get to any place you so desire. Any place you so desire, with patience, with persistence, with hard work, with dexterity, with name it, with that certain optimism and what have you, you will sure get there. There is no nation, there is no individual that has the exclusive right to success, has the exclusive right to unusual life. No, laws make life predictable. The law of gravity that was postulated by Isaac Newton, he told us that um, everything on the earth is subject to the law of gravity. So it doesn't matter where you are on the planet, whether you are in the United States, whether you are in Nigeria, Africa, wherever you find yourself, the law of gravity works. The law of gravity works. The laws of cause and effect also works. So laws work everywhere, and it's the same thing because for you to be successful, for you to be the billionaire we're talking about, for you to be the web creator we're talking about, you must follow certain laws and principles. That is the reason we'll keep coming here every Thursday on Economic Summit, just to let you know a little here, a little there, a little here, a little there. When you apply those principles, you are bound to get the result. Um, I watch a lot of videos of successful people, especially on CNBC now, and then I get to hear how people strive to get to where they are. I was listening to an Australian guy who actually the title of what's it called of the video on YouTube was from $500 to $500 million in 5 years. I was curious to know how did he do it. It's about 13-14 minutes, video, and I was really, excited. I was really, uh, imparted by that young guy. I think he's about 30-year old or something. One of the things he said that really got me excited is he actually, mentioned every phase of life. And for those 13-minute video, he said he talked about his failures more than his success. And that's one of the things I look out for when you tell me how successful you are. I'm always very quick to say, where did you get it wrong along the line? As you get, as how you got here, tell us how the process is. I'm even more interested in the failures than the success itself, because that aspect the media don't show us. But like I told us some time ago, I read a book, Becoming Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg said that they have records of failures more than the success, more than success that the media, push out. And of course, it is that success everybody wants to celebrate. But when you were down, the failures, all the things that happened to you in the course of, in the course of the pursuit of your success, needs to be shown. Like tonight, we're going to be looking at um, Microsoft, especially. We're going to be looking at considering Microsoft. Last week we looked at Apple, as a company, from the first 100, what do you call it now? Biggest companies in the world. Microsoft happens to be the number two. So we're considering Microsoft tonight, and I told us last week that Apple was worth well over $2 trillion by market capitalization. Then Microsoft itself is a second on the list, by visualcapitalist.com. Microsoft happens to be the second on that list. And we're going to be looking at a whole lot of things. How did Microsoft start? What were the processes? What were the things they do well? What were their failures? In fact, we're going to be looking at considering about 11 of failed products of Microsoft. Of course, I got more than that, but I just want to, because of the brevity of time, I want to limit it to about 11. So, but just like I said earlier, I'm super excited at what we're doing. The result will show. The result will show. Just let's keep at it. Keep listening to this. Listen to other ones that you feel are important too. Then apply these things, because for me, the application is the most important thing. To getting excited, getting motivated is good, but the truth is, the work itself is where the juice, the juice of, or the what's it called, the sweetness, the result is actually achieved. So what I'm trying to say in essence is, it's good to listen, it's good to be excited about the information, but what do you do about the information? I'm thinking we're going to still look at this on this platform. I stumbled on about two guys who are taking simple everyday item, and they've turned it into a multi-million dollars. I think one is $1 billion company. you know. In fact, let me just, let you know, two of them are into water company. There are two water companies, and then one canned the so-called water that we take every day. In fact, one of the things he said is when he had the idea of getting into the water business, he in his research he saw that what do you call it, that industry is already saturated, but he told himself that this is this is what I feel, this is what I feel, and he wants to follow his guts. And in 2 or 3 years, that business from almost nothing is worth $700 million today, selling water. And funny enough, he said he wasn't going to use the regular plastics or whatever that is in the what do you call it, in the industry. He now packaged water in a can in the US. I don't want to disclose the name. Well, I'm going to be talking about him or the two companies in our what's it called, in our subsequent series, because these are the stories that captivate me and I want to share with you. Because sometimes we talked about Apple last week, we're talking about Microsoft today. It looks like something in the mind of an average person. Oh, you're just going reading about information to tell us what is applicable. Oh yes, these things are applicable. We'll get there soon. These ones are also applicable, but I still want to. I'll also come up with those things, those ones that even if you didn't go to school at all, you can sell water. How do you package it well? It amazes me when someone can take what do you call it now, an ordinary company in quote selling waters, and the company today is worth $700 million. $700 million. I listened to the guy, I listened to him again and again. I listened to the founder of both few days, I mean, it was yesterday or 2 days ago, and then I saw how that guy, one young guy from I think Russia or thereabout, with dexterity, with unusual gut, designed, what do you call it, the software, gave it to freelancer, spend night and night, and it practically was walking on the street to speak to taxi drivers until he began to, launch into the global market, the Africa and what have you. And do you know the funniest thing, in the course of the video that I listened to, said that the reason why the company, did so well in Africa is because of the rate of unemployment. So you can see that sometimes there are the so-called unemployment is even a good reason for someone to have to succeed in his own business. So tonight we're going to be looking at Microsoft. How did Microsoft, emerge the global company? How did they start? you know so how did Microsoft start? Of course, Microsoft is an household name, except you're living in the cave, or except you're just born. you know you will have, whether you like it or yes, consciously, unconsciously, directly or indirectly, you will have, handled the product by Microsoft. um, but let me start with this. Microsoft, according to Visual Capitalist, uh, is well is worth well over $1.9 trillion in valuation. Microsoft, according to Visual Capitalist, is worth well over $1.9 trillion in valuation. Did you hear what I said? $1.9 trillion. A company that he didn't inherit this company, or the founders didn't inherit this company. They started from scratch, and as of today, is well over $1.39 trillion. It is the second largest company in the world by market capitalization, after Apple Incorporated that we talked about last week. So Microsoft is the second largest company in the world by capitalization. Is worth well over 1.9 trillion dollars. According to the statistics of last year, Microsoft revenue for a period of was $204 billion. Why am I giving all these statistics? You'll get to know later. Microsoft revenue for the 12 months ending December 31st, 2022 was well over $204 billion. Now you will see what do you call it now? The chart here. I check the chart. I check the rate at which Microsoft made its money. You discover that it was like and well, at the time looked like an arithmetic progression, later to a geometric progression, and kept on going on and on and on like that. I stumbled on something that excited me in the course of my what's it called, study or research, and I want us to say it, that if Microsoft is compared or put side by side nations, the largest nations or in the world, you know, Microsoft, will be number 10 richest country in the world. If Microsoft is put side by side richest country in the world, if its market capitalization was equivalent to uh, domestic product (GDP) of other nations, Microsoft would be the number 10 country in the world. That is a company in a nation. Did you hear what I said? I told us that market capitalization, Microsoft is worth well over $1.9 trillion. There are few nations, I mean, massive economy in the world, powerhouses economy in the world like Brazil, Canada, Russia, and South Korea that are also whose GDP is well over $1 trillion. So, but when you put Microsoft side by side other economies of the world, no African nations can even come close. So Microsoft will be the 10th richest country in the world if market cap was equivalent to GDP. You know, with a market cap of more than $1.9 trillion, Microsoft value is larger than the GDP of global powers of like Brazil, Canada, Russia, and South America. I mean South Korea. I mentioned earlier, with a market cap of more than $1.9 trillion, Microsoft value is larger than the GDP of global powerhouses. So I want us to see the what do you call it, the chart or the image that shows that. So now, like I said, if Microsoft, what do you call it now? Market capitalization is compared or was equivalent, that's the word, was equivalent to the GDP, it will be more than many nations in the world. In fact, there are few nations, only 9 nations in the world will be bigger in terms of GDP if what do you call it? Microsoft is a nation, and this is a company whose idea was birthed by two young guys in their young age. Now let's look at that Microsoft cap compared to countries GDP. Microsoft cap compared to other companies GDP. So, if the $1.9 trillion market valuation of or market cap of Microsoft is the same, is equivalent to the GDP of nations, Microsoft as a company will be worth number 10 nation in the world. So that those individuals who own Microsoft can take every of their resources and say they want to go and start a nation, and they will be number 10 in the, in the nations of the world. Now let's get a little bit, let's get to the background. Now I gave us all these stories of what Microsoft is worth today, so that you can, in retrospect, you can have, okay, let's look at the nations that Microsoft is, far larger than. You can see Microsoft, larger than Brazil economy, is larger than even Canada, Russia, larger than Australia, larger than Spain, Mexico, and funny enough, Microsoft started in Mexico. That was in 1975, 4th of April. So, but the same guy or the same guys who started this thing will never imagine. In fact, while I was reading the story of Microsoft compared with IBM, um, you will get to know that one of the things that made Microsoft so successful 5 years after they started was that they licensed the MS DOS to IBM, and at that time that was sold, I think the license Microsoft was paid about $430,000 at as at 1980, $430,000, and as at that time IBM was 3,000 times more than IBM. 18 years after, Microsoft, was already leading. Microsoft was already higher in terms of market cap than IBM. So I'm saying all these things so you don't say, oh, IBM is all, I mean, is there already. Microsoft is already a $1.9 trillion company, so I can't be there. No, not at all. I remember listening to Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba, who said at a point when he wanted to start, he was very angry with, what do you call it, Jeff Bezos. He was angry with Bill Gates, saying that these guys have taken away all the money, and they are oh, I mean, they are the one who owns all the money. But few years down the line, Alibaba, was bigger than the whole of, what do you call it, Amazon and all major e-commerce companies. So don't ever. I remember reading about the Google story too at a point when they were in Stanford. Bill Gates came, to, founder of Microsoft came to, what do you call it, build a particular, I mean, erect a building in their computer science, department. And then these guys enjoyed all those things there. Few years after, they were the stiff competitor of that is company. Now, what was Microsoft first called? Microsoft actually was called Micro Dash Soft. Microsoft. Now, of course, I actually let the cat out of the bag earlier. Microsoft was founded by Gates and Paul Allen. Bill Gates and Paul Allen started Microsoft, originally called Microsoft. If you are not watching, you will not understand the difference between Microsoft and Microsoft. Micro dash soft. Now, and these two means that micro is actually from the word microprocessors, and the soft is actually from the word software. Reason is they want to produce software for the Altair 8800 and early personal computer. you know can we see that early computer? So I was reading when I was okay when I was doing the research. The Altair 8800 was about the best, what do you call it, personal computer at that time. And there was this inscription on a meme that says, "Can you beat our, what do you call it, our Altair 8800 personal computer?" At that time, it was the big deal. Can you beat this innovation? Can you beat this technology? you know, but I can laugh now because at that time it looks like the big deal. But now who wants to, do that? Inspiration. Um, the two guys, Bill Gates and Paul Allen, were inspired by the January cover of popular electronic magazine, you know, to develop the software for the Altair 800 and early personal computer. I've mentioned that. So now, sometimes I think when we were talking about Mark Cuban, I told us that Mark Cuban also got his inspiration from few materials he read. So you can get your inspiration from a whole lot of people, a whole lot of things. Your environment can be your inspiration. So these young guys got their inspiration from the back page, the cover of a magazine. You know, what's his name? Bill Gates was an Harvard student, while Paul Allen, was a programmer, and he had to resign in the company he was working for, and both of them came together. And of course, the Microsoft as a company started in the year 1975, April 4th to be precise. But 2 years before that time was when both of them met, and of course, they worked on few products. They worked on a particular product, and they were trying to commercialize it, but it didn't fit in as when they discover this what do you call it, the software that they actually put in Altair 8800. Now, what was Microsoft first product? Microsoft first product. Now, I have told us the word of Microsoft, what Microsoft is worth today: 1.9 trillion dollars in market capitalization. Now, if Microsoft is put side by side with global, what do you call it, economy, and in terms of ranking, Microsoft will be the number 10 nation in the world. Number 10 nation in the world, beating nations like Canada, beating nations like Spain, like Mexico, the city where it's, I mean, the company actually started from. Brazil, what do you call it, Russia, and the big name economy. One company. And you saw here that it was created. Microsoft was founded by the duo of two friends, Paul Allen and Bill Gates. Paul Allen and Bill Gates. Now, if you look at that image on the screen now, you will see that they were super excited to be in front of that computer. Nobody uses this kind of computer now, but they never despise the days of little beginning. You will be shocked as I go ahead that, like I said, their first product, Microsoft released its first product, which is called the Altair Basic. The Altair Basic. That was its first product. Can you see it? That image you see there is the, what do you call, the personal computer that is called Altair 8800. And Microsoft had to develop a software to work with that Altair, 8800, and they had to call it Altair Basic because it was like it is the basic, software they could use, they could put into this to make it function well, and that was having a deal with that company at that time. Microsoft's first widely successful operating system was MS-DOS. Please take note that the reason why I talked about all of the success of Microsoft, that Microsoft today, if put side by side with companies in the world, is what will be the number 10 nations in the world. By market valuation, Microsoft is worth well over $1.9 trillion. Now, when they started, they never had any amount of money. And when they sold their, they marketed their first product to IBM, you'll get this soon. It wasn't even their original idea. Microsoft's first widely successful operating system was MS-DOS, and by MS-DOS we mean Microsoft's Disk Operating System, which was written for IBM in 1981. That was 6 years after that company started. And based on computer programmer Tim Peterson, quick and dirty programming system. That's the original name MS-DOS was called. It was called Quick Dot, QDOS, permit me, QDOS, Quick and Dirty Operating System. Look at the name, so funny a name. In the deal of the century, Gate licensed MS-DOS to IBM, but retained the right to the software. So this, for me, it's an amazing, what do you call it, business strategy. Any other person could have sold all the license, sold all the rights, but he retained the right so that he can continue to sell it to other companies in case they need it. That was one of the most intelligent things Paul Allen and Bill Gates did at the start of that company. They got the idea about MS-DOS. They never even wrote the code. You can see the name of the guy who wrote the code. Tim Peterson was the one who wrote the code. Just like when we get to Facebook too, you will discover that the idea of Facebook wasn't even what's it called? Wasn't even his. It wasn't even one that wrote. Of course, some of us will have followed the story. The two guys who originally had the idea are taking Facebook to court. So the same thing here. So what does that mean? You don't necessarily have to come up with very crazy or usual idea. In fact, in the last few days, the materials I've been reading says virtually all there is no quote unquote new ideas as it were. Just get the basic, the regular ideas, the saturated market. Why you just tweak the product a little bit, check areas that you feel if this is what For instance, um, um, if you have maybe like this wristwatch or something, and then okay, this is made by so and so company, and you look at it and say, okay, I wish this wristwatch is a bit flat in here, and all of this thing. See, there are 1,001 person who wish the same thing. So if you start a product like that around it, it will what do you call it, change. It will bring you money. Now, as I talked, I remember in the part of the world I live in, Lagos, Nigeria. I remember there was a time, of course, for some of us who knows the story, when water was actually in a nylon. We call it ice water. Permit me. It was in a nylon, and it was sold for maybe 1 naira or whatever, one ridiculous amount. And somebody said we can take it a bit, can make it a bit better, package it in a bottle, and the same content that is sold for 1 naira, 1 naira or thereabout, the person now decide we will sell it for, times 10, times 20, times 30 of the same amount, the same content, just by packaging it and changing the looks. So what I'm trying to say in essence is the ideas that will make you very successful, that will turn you into billionaires, are already around you. There are some of us who get to do business with e-commerce companies, or we get to do business with people out there. And then when they come, you say, why don't you do it like this? Why don't you do it like why don't see that thing you saying? The company may not pay attention. Remember, I told you how what was his name? Jeff Bezos left his former company. He was told to do a research on the internet, And then, when he did that research on the internet, he found out that, what is this? He said at that time, internet was, was increasing. The things about internet was increasing by 2,300%. And then he advised his company, let's get to do this, let's get into the internet. And the company says this will be for a later execution. So, but he said he couldn't get his mind off it, that how could you abandon something that is getting this kind of unusual result. That was when he decided and said to himself that if he doesn't take the advantage of, if he doesn't plug himself into this, the advantage that the internet has to offer now, that by the time he's 80, if he looks back, he would regret. But he said he would, get into it, risk his investment into this thing called the internet. That even if he fails, that he was a brilliant chap, he would dust whatever certificate and get back to the labor market. You know, his boss, walked in for 2 hours in the bid to talk the idea of him. But that guy, his mind was made up. He had a resolute and undying passion for what he wanted to do. So, what am I trying to say in essence is this: the ideas that will change your life is not something like maybe to build houses or build schools in the air. No, not exactly that. It could just be okay, for instance, the guy who packaged water in a can said a lot of people don't drink water in the US again. They are so used to coffee, they are so used to soda. In fact, a woman mentioned in the story I read that, thank you for this, that at least my son has reduced the quantity of the soda he takes, because the water it looks exactly like the soda he takes, and it doesn't even have any taste. So it is just, take one simple thing, one everyday thing that we are using, and just tweak it a bit, and that is it. What's the story of Uber? What is the story of Airbnb? The same house I live, and then I put, maybe for instance, you live in a 5 bedroom apartment, and two, three, rooms are just left there. Somebody just thought about it. Why don't we create that small space and let it be? See, Airbnb today is the biggest, what's it called, hotels in the world without a building. Uber the same. The same young guy that I mentioned, both, all he knew, all he knows to do is just to write codes. And he said he wants to get into the transportation system. And he began to do his study. I was talking to somebody about it. I remember some 20, 25 years, was it 20? I think it's up to that. 1997, 2000. That's about 23 years ago. I read a book on about the internet or something, how to put your business on the internet, and it struck me that e-commerce was the big deal. Taxi was the big deal. I was going from one taxi park to the other to talk to these guys to sign up to my site, taxis.com.ng. I gave up when they were so the men were so backward. That's my conclusion anyway. But a few years after, I heard somebody came up with Uber idea, somebody came up with Bolt, and they are billionaires in dollars now. So what am I trying to say is, don't push your ideas away. The reason why we're doing what we're doing now is so as to steer you up, like I said all the time, by what I'm doing or what I'm saying. If you are stirred up, I would expect that you do a little bit of research. I know I have a vision, I have an assignment, to help young people, especially to become uh, millionaire, billionaire, multi-millionaires. And the way to get it done is to expose them to a lot of information. Like I told us, I was reading, started reading this book last week. I'm not done because of course I picked another book in the course of reading it. And one of the things this book, is doing for me is giving me examples of a whole lot of people what it started as. It's from this book I saw the guy who had the idea to start his water bottled water company in the US. And when I watched his video, he said when he did his research, the market is already saturated. But he said, okay, this is what I want to do, and the company is close to being $1 billion company. Who would have thought that getting into the water industry will still make anybody a million, any thousands in dollars? Talk less of becoming multi-millionaire in it. So I'm saying this: don't like the word MS DOS was actually QDOS before. Somebody wrote the program, and what Paul Allen and Bill Gates did was to tweak it a little, and after they did that, they just went to talk to IBM, and IBM was willing to part with $430,000 at that time. $430,000 in 1980 was a big deal. Close to 40 years or more than that. 40 something, 42 years or thereabout. Now, see, I have said that the idea of Facebook wasn't what Mark Zuckerberg, brought himself. I've talked about Microsoft now. As I talk now, remember there's this company now. I'm trying to just keep my mind now. I'll get to talk about it. That it wasn't their original idea. I can mention multi-billion dollar company today who's I mean that who started, but the idea wasn't theirs originally. So it doesn't matter. You can be in a conversation with friends and they are talking about something, just like I mentioned water now. You can just go do your research. How can we? Water is something that we will ever live, we will always take till death. So if you can just have a tweak, do something here and there, never mind. The thing is, somebody will say, okay, in my country, nobody will get into what I read about the story of one of the wealthiest guy in China. Is it China? Yes. And what is his business? Water, bottled water. So you imagine what is in water. So go do your research and you will thank me for this. Now, one of the things that, okay, I think it was, what do you call it now? That I don't remember. It was Apple that I mentioned last week. When Steve Wozniak designed the first computer, Apple One. Steve Wozniak, he's just an engineer, and Steve Jobs met him and told him this, that, and he took Apple One, sold it for I think about $4,000 or something. Is it $5,000? And he told Steve Wozniak that it was just for $700, and they still shared the $700 into two. Steve Wozniak said the day he heard that Steve Jobs sold that product for $5,000, he wept because it was basically his brainchild. Steve Jobs was just a good salesperson who took the Apple, what do you call it, Apple One, and turned it into a global brand. So you may not necessarily, the idea might come from, what do you call it, might come from a friend, might come from your house help, might come from just anybody. So see, I have listened to a lot of multi-billionaires, multi-millionaires, owners of global brands, unicorns, and I found out that the same way you come up with idea, the same way you pursue your idea, is the same way they do it too. I was talking about that young Australian who grew his business from $500 to $500 million. Let me share the story before we get into the 10, 11 failed products of Microsoft and In the next couple of minutes, will be, I mean, rounding up. Now, this young guy said, like I told you, that the 13, 14 minutes video of him that I watched, it talked, 75% of it was all his failed business. And I like that. I like when people are honest, not that everything you touch just turn to gold. In fact, the number of videos I've watched this last few days about multi-million, global brands in their multi-billion, what do you call it? I've seen that a whole lot of them are just regular men, regular women like you and I. What's the name of this company that I listened to? They just used artificial intelligence to solve government, political, and legal issues. The guy said for the first 6 months, they didn't even understand what to do about the company, but they wanted to start a company. Now, when he got the idea, they reached out to Mark Cuban. The guy said he sent a mail. I'm a young graduate from Yale College. I am a partner. I have this idea. Blah, blah, blah. Except 45 minutes after, Mark Cuban called them and asked them, invited them, and they had, bounced the ideas back and forth and all of that. By that meeting, they were able to raise $750,000. And when they were done, they said they practically wrote to 10,000 customers before they got about maybe one person who said he had this problem and they solved it for $20,000. And he said the moment we got one, he said to himself, we can get 10, we can get 100, we can get 1,000, and on and on and on like that. So a lot of the times, a lot of people have remained at their level, have remained as mediocres because we expect some unusuals to just happen without putting serious work into it. I listened to a guy a few days ago and he said something very amazing. He said there are two ways to becoming very successful. He said you can be so lucky. You design a website or you design right, and I mean just like what's the name, um Instagram. Instagram, became so successful just in 2, 3 years, and it was sold to Facebook for $1 billion. There are companies like that, but there are others. I've said it before. Netflix, that everybody gets to hear today. Netflix was created in 1997. 1997 to this time is 20 something years, and nobody got to know about it. There's another company like that I read about. Is it something? Name is close to Zoom, not even Zoom. Now, if you look at Zoom itself, what actually brought Zoom out for everybody to start using and became a billionaire out of Zoom? COVID brought it out. So there are businesses. Yes, I've read about business with in 6 years, 7 years, they were making nothing. Nothing. Alibaba said that he meets a whole lot of people who comes to tell him, thank you for creating Alibaba. And he wasn't making any money there. He wasn't making no money. And guys were already, what do you call them now? Merchants were already making lots and lot of money. But he wasn't making money. The same was for Google. When they started, Google never had any business model. Google was given $25 million, finished $25 million, and were looking for money again. Until Eric Schmidt came, the first CEO, and they told him, if you want to be part of this company, you must invest your money too, because at that time he had worked with some microsystem. It was already made, and he dropped his $1 million, and today he's a billionaire. So what am I trying to say in essence is there are several ideas that will come to you. I told us of an idea a lady came up with. He said he got into the toilet after his husband, just finished using the toilet, and it was smelly and all of those things. He ran out and he asked himself, what if this is a public toilet that I want to use? That was how he got into this idea of of the PEF. He said when that PEF is dropped into the WC before you use the toilet, it kills all the odor. So whether you're 20 or 30, you get into the place and use the toilet without any issue. Now that company was sold for $400 million in 2 or 3 years. I am saying all this, and they are everyday regular people. They are everyday regular people. I've talked about the Australian guy. The Australian guy said he was doing one business or the other. In fact, at a point, he said he was flipping, he was selling his Instagram account. Today, his Instagram account is up to 100,000 followers. He will advertise it and people will buy. He said he was just flipping. In fact, he got a particular, Instagram account and he said he loved it. And the guy who wanted to sell it told him they were going to sell it for $40,000. $40,000. And eventually bought it. Few weeks after, he got a mail from Instagram that account was actually hacked and stolen. So all his life saving then was $40,000, and that was what he used to buy the Instagram account. He couldn't do anything. He had to release it to Instagram, and he said it was flat, broken, depressed, but he didn't remain there. He said he flew back, was lost his house, started living with his parents again, but he jacked back. He said he was reading online on Facebook, to be precise, and he saw somebody, a write-up about how to solve the problem of insomnia, and he checked it, and somebody mentioned the solution to insomnia is one particular blanket or the other. He said he just got online, checked for companies in China that could manufacture that for him, and he explained well on his website. Did Google ad, did Facebook ad, did Instagram ad, and all of that. He said in few days there were 400 orders. Got the money, send the money to, what do you call it, to China, and few days after, the what's it called, the order came. Of course, the order didn't come without his own side of the story. Customs stopping it, at the border, and he would lose his money if that thing didn't come. He was able to get over it, and in no time, the nation, the media now began to, saw that he was making a whole lot of money. He was already in the media space. What am I trying to say in essence is, everybody you see, in the spotlight today as wealth creator, billionaires, already also have their own share time of failures. And I've listened to a man who said, if you know any successful person who didn't fail getting up, run from that person. How do you want to explain it? Success is when you fail several times and you are, because there is no how. Was it Google that I read their story to? But did a whole lot of things, and yes, it failed. Let's look at the 11 biggest failed product of Microsoft. Let's look at it. The first is Zoom. The first product is called Zoom. I'm sure some of us didn't even hear it, because it only lasted for about 1 or 2 years before Microsoft discontinued it. That's Zoom on the screen. Microsoft Zone was made to rival the iPod. You see that it looks like the iPod. Unfortunately, the Zone could never keep up with the iPod in terms of sales and popularity. Zone was crushed by iPod. Now, when I'm talking about a company that is worth well over $1 trillion, so when they came up with the idea of Zone, which was to rival iPod, you will know that they've done their research in terms of market, in terms of sales, in terms of whatever, usage and what have you. So they've done their research, and they spent a whole lot. But there was a product in the market that beat them to it, and Zune died a night. Of course, a lot of us didn't know what Microsoft Zune was. Oh, sorry, is. A lot of us didn't know what Microsoft Zone is. So it was, because the way businessmen think is, you have a business or someone says, "Oh, I am producing water, and I we sell 1 million bottles every day, and we make X Y amount of money, and then we're not able to meet the demand." And you're like, "What are you talking about?" And you just get back as a business person. Maybe you have just 200, 300, 500 million. You want to get into the business immediately. And that was what do you call it now? Microsoft wanted to do. They wanted to create Zoom to rival iPod, but they were not able to do it. The next product that Microsoft created and failed is called Microsoft King. See, Microsoft King was supposed to be a social networking phone, but do you know what? This King only lasted 2 months. Microsoft King was supposed to be a social networking phone. Microsoft invested 2 years, in the research of King. Microsoft also invested $1 billion. Did you hear what I said? $1 billion to this smartphone, and was given to a company called Verizon. And Verizon stopped the sales just 2 months. Listen and listen again. Microsoft created this uh, product called King. It's called Microsoft King. It's actually as a phone, a social networking phone, and they did their research for 2 years. Because sometimes you want to beat yourself to it. You want to say, "Oh, all the 200, I mean, the 2 million, my life savings has gone. This is that. What is it that I didn't do well?" Calm down. There are times your product research is excellent, all your marketing thing excellent, but sometimes it might not even be the right time for that product. So Microsoft at that time invested $1 billion and 2 years of market research and what have you. And the product only lasted 2 months in the market. I don't know the country you're watching me from, but from where I am, $1 billion can take care of many states in my country. I'm sure the same thing. $1 billion. That's close to about 700, 800 billion naira in Lagos, Nigeria. 800 billion. If you spend such an amount as a company. So sometimes it's not the money. Now, I said the King was supposed to be a revolution for younger cell phone users, but was met with poor sales and a crappy interface that didn't even let you post a photo to Twitter. Did you see it? It didn't even let you post an image to Twitter. So look at, money was spent. Let's go to the next one. Windows Me. Windows Me. Ah. See, I want you to know that failure is part of the process. Failure is part of the process. You must understand that in the course of you're coming up with your ideas, your product, you will make mistakes. Sometimes some of the mistake can wipe as much as half of your capital. You don't give up. Windows Me, Windows Me, Windows Me was supposed to be Microsoft's next big operating system after the Windows 98, but Windows Me was just available for just a year. Windows Me was released as a special Millennium Edition operating system. It was released, of course, the Millennium Bug and all of the story. So Microsoft went into research and said, "Okay, let's get to do this." And Microsoft, the Windows Me was launched in September of 2000, but Windows Me was only available for just a year. The software was heavily criticized for being buggy and unstable. For being buggy and unstable. See, all of those products for a company that I've mentioned to you, they didn't just come up with the ideas from the blues. These companies have an R&D department where a lot will be talked about: product manager, product testing, and what have you. And after it got into the market, years of whatever, spent a lot of money and what have you, and it was just rejected. Another what do you call it? Another failed product was Microsoft Lumia smartphones. Microsoft Lumia smartphones, and I'm sure a lot of us use that phone. At least most of us sort of. I know someone who was when he bought this phone, it was like he had bought a house. Made a whole lot of fun about some of us that were not using Lumia smartphones. I'm sure you can't see that product anywhere again. Now, let me tell you this. There was a time when Microsoft, acquired Nokia. That acquisition was for about $7 billion. And with that, it gave Microsoft the ownership of the Lumia smartphone. You see, and just like we talked about Apple last, what do you call it now? Yes, Apple last week. Every of those company wants to get into the product, into the market that they feel is thriving or that they feel the people want in the markets. So Microsoft also wanted to get into the smartphone markets and then bought Nokia for $7 billion and had the Lumia smartphones. Now, the Lumia became so unpopular due to their bad features and lack of competitiveness with respect to rival phones. See, 2014 was when what do you call it now? Microsoft bought Nokia, acquired Nokia for $7 billion. But when this product, Lumia smartphone, was produced, by the third year, 3 years after that was acquired, Microsoft's quarterly revenue dropped to, on this smartphone in particular, dropped to $5 million. A company that you bought for $7 billion was giving you only $5 million every quarter. That's about $20 million in a year. Microsoft had to shut it down. There's another one. So I'm giving you all this. You see, these are just 11 of their failed products. There are several products that failed that maybe that didn't last for a few months or whatever. We're not talking about that now. So I'm saying all of these things because you will experience failures. We mentioned a product that Microsoft invested over $1 billion to. That's Microsoft King, over $1 billion. Acquired Nokia for $7 billion. Did you get that? That's $8 billion. You can get the statistics as I'm giving you. There is no product that failed that the company Microsoft didn't spend so much into research, so much into manufacturing the product, and in few days, in few months, it was discontinued. Let's talk about Microsoft Surface RT. Microsoft Surface RT. This also entered, the tablet market when Apple introduces tablets. Microsoft felt, okay, let's get into the tablet market too, and that was in the year 2012. And Microsoft launched is Surface RT, and this didn't work at all. This confused consumers, and dismayed app creators. Microsoft built on Surface RT in 2013, just 1 year after it was created. You know, that the Microsoft Surface RT did not fare well in the market. Now, a lot of things confuse the consumers and even the app creators. Microsoft built on Surface RT in 2013, which led to the biggest sell-off of Microsoft shares after 2009 because of this singular product. It wiped over $34 billion in Microsoft market value. $34 billion. We've mentioned $34 billion. We mentioned $1 billion. I've mentioned $7 billion. Now it's $34 billion. So you know that any company that is standing, see, I talk about these failures so you don't think that, oh, Microsoft never failed, Apple never failed, they're in the US, they have all the money and what have you. No. So be prepared to meet plenty of failures in your product. A lot of people are not successful today because they feel that the moment they start their uh, business ventures, it must be good, 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 good all the time. Remember the scenario? Was it last week that it happened? The AI, Chat GPT, and Google chatbots, chatbot. Sorry, that what was it? $10 billion, just simple error in $10 billion. Google lost $10 billion like that. So, or as it's called now, alphabet. So, for everything you do, so on your way to becoming a $1 billion company, on your way to become a billionaire as an individual, there are bound to be many failures. So, when those failures come, all you need to do is shake yourself off, check where exactly you didn't do it right, then move forward. You think Microsoft want to get into the tablet market to lose such a huge or humongous amount of money? $34 billion was wiped in their market value. $7 billion was, of course, before Microsoft will acquire Nokia. You will have sat down to check whatever needs to be checked. Still, the smartphones didn't work, and then all that amount was lost. Another failed product was the Internet Explorer 6. In fact, when I read about this, the comment was very, very, what was the word? Crude. The Microsoft Internet Explorer 6 was crude, was terribly spoken of. Terribly spoken of. He said, now look at the statement. Internet Explorer 6 is known as one of the worst versions of the web browser. Internet Explorer 6 is known as one of the worst versions of the web browser. Internet Explorer 6 was widely criticized for security issues and lack of support for modern web standards. Now look at this. The browser has made many appearances. You can see that it's really odd. There wasn't any pleasant comment about the Internet Explorer 6 at all. Said the browser has made many appearances in worst tech products of all time. Did you hear it? That's Microsoft product. That is Internet Explorer 6, not 1, 2, 3, 4. So Internet Explorer 6 said has made appearances in worst tech products of all time. Now, PC World, of course, for some of us in the tech world, you understand PC World as a leading media or magazines, labeling Internet Explorer as the least secure software on the planet. Very unpleasant comment, very, crude, what have you. Another is Microsoft Portraits. Microsoft Portraits. Microsoft Portraits. So, see, the others are Windows 8, Windows, what do you call it? Windows Vista. I knew when Windows 8 was brought into the market, downloaded, I mean, changed my operating system to Windows 8, and let's look at what do you call it now? Um, Microsoft Portraits. It actually came before Skype. It came before FaceTime. It was developed by Microsoft in the 1990s. And what these products wanted to do is the same thing Skype and FaceTime of Apple did, but Microsoft did not get it right. Microsoft was already thinking ahead of Skype, ahead of time, to say, let's have, what do you call it now? A face to face, video calling, but it failed. Another is MSN. I know a lot of us know about MSN. Some of us remember hotmail.com. Then it's either you have a yahoo.com or an hotmail.com. Hotmail was owned or bought by Yahoo. And we used to have MSN Messenger. Then, back then, MSN Messenger. The funny thing about MSN Messenger is at the zenith of this product, it had over 330 million active users. At the zenith of this product, MSN, because of course a lot of us use MSN then, for chatting. One small box by the side of your computer, and you are on there. It comes in like that, like that. At that time, it had over 300. How all these things just phased out. It's really a funny thing. Now, Microsoft had to discontinue MSN due to dispute and what have you. Let's look at two more, and it will be the end of uh, tonight's episode. Windows Vista. Windows Vista. Microsoft also lost. Now, let me quickly say this, that we bring out all these failed products, so you see that all this big name product, how they started. This is how they started. They got some product right, some others failed. They got this right, others failed. And this is the failure. Failed product is consistent with all the big name companies. Failed products is consistent. Sometimes you come up with an idea and you feel the market will celebrate it. It will be so rejected that you come to think of it and what is this? So for you to get to where you are going to get to in life, for you, you are going to meet plenty of failures. Successful people aren't without failures. They failed well. In fact, successful people have failed more than unsuccessful people. The reason why they are successful is because they have been able. Look at the success you have in your life. Let's check to look at the progress in your life. Are they without failures? Absolutely not. Does the position you are today, that few people around you wants to get there, they feel that it is just by waking up and just coming to sit down and that's it. No, I think there was a time I was checking, because this Facebook, YouTube, talk, we've been on at it now constantly for about 3 4 years. And then when we check when we started, sometimes we laugh at ourselves. Sometimes we use ordinary phone for recording. Ordinary phone for recording. So let me tell you this. You have everything it takes to become very, very successful. One, you have everything it takes to become a wealthy person. You have everything it takes to become a billionaire. You have everything it takes to become a super achiever. Are you getting what I'm saying? You have everything it takes to become a super achiever. And let me tell you again, let me reiterate it, they will come plus failures. No success will come without the failure package. But be prepared is good. You have that idea that the failures are part of the success journey. So when they come, you say, oh, I've heard about you. Check what you didn't do well, what you didn't get right, and you switch. And there you go. You have everything it takes. For instance, this episode, Economic Summit, was started in January. I can tell you in 5 or 6 episodes, I've learned so much in less than 2 months. 2023 for me is really, I mean, has been a very good year. As is getting better by the day. So you have everything it takes. Everyone who is a mega success today, everyone. See, let me tell you one of the reasons why um, um, I'm so obsessed by wealth creation. I'm so obsessed by becoming a billionaire or by talking about this, and so that everyone who follows what we're doing will become one, is when you have that kind, when you create that kind of wealth, you're going to impact generations. You are going to, I read about Oprah, one of the wealthiest black women on the earth. She flew to Angola, flew to South Africa, built schools for girls who have been abused, girls, and the result has been very phenomenal. You see what people, I was listening to a guy, whose father is wealthy. He is also wealthy. Said the father flew to Africa, a particular place, and the philanthropic, what's it call it? Um, they started something great in Africa. The same thing I want you to have in mind. The money, the wealth we're talking about, the billions we're talking about, is not just for your personal consumption. It's so that you can take children out of the streets. The children who aren't able to go to school, it will be through you that they will be graduates. I see that happening in no distant time. In no distant time. So pay attention to all this. The little we say on Tuesdays, I mean, sorry, on Thursdays, get to do a little bit of research. How can I become? Because some people just feel that it's just very few people in this life that will become billionaire. Why not you? Why not you? I hate when I hear that it's just 2% of the population of the world that will get to that point. All the rest, I am part of the 2%. Why not? Why not? You keep striving hard. Every day you are consumed by how to get up there. Because just like I mentioned, if you have $1 billion, look at that your community, look at few members of your family, look at that schools around, look at your alma mater, you will do a whole lot for it to it. Because of course I know some people are not, when they see speakers, when they see people talk about wealth, when they see people talk about how to become very successful, they are like, what is he talking about? Let's go and sit down. I'm already sitting down, and we're going to say it for a long time until we start bringing, of course, no distant time, get to talk to billionaires around the world who will come to talk to us from here. Take my word for it. Billionaires in dollars from around the nations of the world who come and grace, you know, our sit here to talk to you how they made it. Each time I listen to billionaires, I'm always like, okay, what exactly do you do differently? Oh yes, there are things they do differently, and I bet you can do the same thing. It didn't come to this world just to pass, become one of the statistics, and that's it. No. All right. Thank you so very much for your time. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your time. Whether we're one, whether we're zero, whether we're two, I'm passionate about this. I am very sure that not long from now, billionaires, because in fact, there is no limit, there is no age where you write yourself off. Don't write yourself off. Whether you are 50, whether you are 30, whether you are, and as a young person too, see yourself that you can get to that summit. If a company is built by an individual, I told us that when Bill Gates started in 1975, April 4th. By 1980, he had a meeting with IBM, of course, well helped by the mom, because the father was a lawyer. Bill Gates actually dropped out of Harvard because he saw that he had a bigger assignment, bigger, you know, I mean, thing to pursue in life. And of course, it's obvious. And at the time, he was having, when the company was 5 years old, IBM was 3,000 times bigger in size, in revenue, employees than Bill Gates. But 18 years after, with consistency, Microsoft was higher in terms of market capitalization than IBM. Just 18 years. And Microsoft started doing extremely well from Windows 95, 20 years after that company started. So don't start today, 3 years, 4 years, and say, if it's going to work, it's going to work now. I, I've said it. There is a company I listen to, a guy I listen to. There's a guy I listen to. 6 years, 6 years, the company wasn't making profits. Netflix started in 1997. And by 1997, I mean 26 years ago. How many years ago did you start hearing Netflix? 4, 5 years max. But that company has remained. Zoom, the same thing. Don't stop. Don't stop. Don't write yourself off that I'm just here, let's get the best job, live in a room, 2 rooms. No, no. We're still going to talk about Mary Kay. Mary Kay resigned, and the attorney, the accountant told her she cannot make anything out of the money she has saved. She didn't listen. She studied till today. Mary Kay said one of the things she wanted to do was to empower other women like her. And true to it, till tomorrow she's still doing it. Mary Kay is not a cosmetics that you just buy with change, because a woman was resolute, and look at the results. So I want to admonish us. Money is something that we all want. I say it all the time. Nobody great gets a credit alert and frowns. So of course, I know some people will not like what I'm doing, but it's okay. It's all right. Everybody who is great today, a lot of people didn't like what they were doing, but they keep at it. I was sitting when I was getting ready for this meeting. I was telling myself, imagine this program in the next 10 years. Imagine in the next 15 years. Not that it's not something we just started after 2 months, 3 months, we feel we are done. No. I've told myself, whether it's 1%, whether it's half, that's 0% that I'm talking to, I will continue talking about it. I'll put it there for somebody to listen to over and again, because I know, passionate. I know that I want to see young persons. It's my joy, it's my desire. What excites me, what makes me happy is that I'm able to contribute to someone's life. And that's value. That's what makes a billionaire. Ability. I told us of Richard Branson, who up until was 14 was dyslexic and was told by his principal, you will either be so very rich or you will go to jail. And according to him, he has done the two. He went to jail, in the course of doing his business. And today, he calls his business virgin because most of the of the time when he want to start the business, he knows next to nothing about that thing. So don't let anybody talk you out of what is great for you. Be at it. You can be a billionaire in dollars. When I say in dollars, I know what I'm talking about. So I will leave you with one of the talks of Bill Gates, the co-founder of Microsoft. Let me leave you with this. The company we talk about today was started by two friends, Bill Gates and Paul Allen. Of course, a few years after Paul Allen quitted the company, because he had a sickness, a disease that he never treat. Of course, he got well and started other things. Now, let me say this. Um, Started like that, and they put their heart into it. Today, that company is worth close to $2 trillion. And like I said, when we compared this tech company with other economies of the world, economies like Russia, like Spain, like Mexico, like what do you call it, Canada, the company Microsoft is far worth more than that. When you put nations of the world in terms of their GDP, like I said, if Microsoft's market capitalization is equivalent to country's GDP, it will be number 10 country in the world, but is a company, an idea in the mind of a man. I'll be here next Thursday again. Don't give up on your dreams. Don't give up on your idea. You will succeed. Thank you for joining tonight on Economic Summit, where we're looking at this series, how they started the world's biggest company. I'll see you next week. Bye for now.
Published my Yearhead 2023 letter looking at what's going to happen in the next 12 months and beyond. Life is changing. I'm about to become a grandfather. I reflect on the challenges we have right now with climate change getting worse, the Ukraine war, tough economic cycle, but it's hopefully uplifting because I also share great innovations. A great example is gene therapy could cure HIV. A AI-powered ultrasound machine that will help save lives of moms and newborns. Climate technologies that will make it so the emissions from buildings go down quite dramatically. I'm excited that we can get back making progress on tough issues. I hope you'll take a few minutes to read why I think we can make the future a lot better than the past. You can check it out at gatesnotes.com. I just published my Yearhead 2023 letter looking at what's going to happen in the next